Hello, my name is Michelle, and you're listening to Profit is a Choice. With me today is Stacey Brown Randall. Stacey is a 3-time entrepreneur, a coach, and author of Generating Business Referrals Without Asking. And she's also host of the Roadmap to Grow Your Business podcast. As a member of the Business Failure Club, Stacey learned the importance of referrals and of referral sources to business growth. Stacey began a quest to crack the code on how to generate referrals without ever asking. And when she started her second business, which was a business and productivity coaching practice, she knew that keeping her pipeline full of clients would be one of the biggest differentiators from the business failure. So she really honed in on referrals as the main source of prospects for her second business. And she did a lot of research and just wasn't satisfied with conventional advice, which was that you had to keep asking for referrals. So she created a strategy that she found that did work and that wasn't salesy at all by fine-tuning referrals without asking. And she's taking hundreds of people through her coaching practice and her online education with the same results. So we're going to talk today about what referrals are and what they're not and why they matter. It's really refreshing to talk about what doesn't work in business because we can learn a lot from that and then to find out what does. I don't know about you, but I'd certainly love to have a business of referrals without ever having to ask. And according to Stacey, it's possible. So listen in, check it out, and I hope you take away some really great actionable items to put into your business. Every day, empowered entrepreneurs are taking ownership of their company financial health and enjoying the rewards of reduced stress and more creativity. With my background as a financial software developer, owner of multiple businesses in the interior design industry, educator, and speaker, I coach women in the interior design industry to increase their profits, regain ownership of their bottom line, and to have fun again in their business. Welcome to Profit is a Choice. Hey, Stacey, welcome to the Profit is a Choice podcast. I'm glad to have you with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So you and I met back in the fall at High Point Market. We did an event together with Luann and some others, and we're both getting ready to be co-authors of the second book that I think Luann's putting out, Lessons I Learned from the Friday Experts. And you and I hit it off really well, and I loved the topic and your kind of zone of expertise and really wanted you to come on and chat with my listeners today because what you have to share fits into profitability in a business like in a huge way.
Oh, absolutely. And the feelings are totally mutual. When I found out you're the Profit First expert, I was like, oh my gosh, I love everything about that. And so I'm just a little fangirl.
All
so
right.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm a fangirl because you have a book, which we'll make sure that we have in the show notes. And remember, we got a picture of you signing the book for me.
That's right. I forgot about that. That's right. Yay.
So, Stacey, if you would start a little bit and just tell us about the business that you have today.
Sure. So I work with small business owners and solopreneurs to help them grow their businesses in the easiest way possible. And the easiest way possible that I have found is referrals. But if you've ever listened to any advice on referrals, you know you've been told you have to ask to receive them. And I decided to crack the code on generating referrals without asking. So that is what I teach fellow small business owners and solopreneurs to do is how do we generate referrals without asking? What's the 5-step process to make that happen? And it really allows those business owners and solopreneurs to grow their business with greater ease and to make more money because, as we all know, referrals are less price sensitive. So it's just a great way, and I think a great tool for every business owner to have in their toolbox is to know how to generate referrals, but to do it without having to ask for them if you don't like asking.
So we'll jump into that in a minute because I think there's so many important pieces to that. One, when we're just looking at our time as a resource and efficiency, having referrals work for us in the background is making money for us with us out having to go out and do it, right? So that's one part of it. But then the second part is I think what you said at the very end, especially if you don't like asking.
Right. I always tell people that I think asking for a referral is like a cousin to a cold call. Nobody wants to do it and nobody wants to be on the receiving end of it.
Yeah. And then, you know what's so interesting though, And I think we'll talk about in a minute, what is referral, what's not a referral. Sometimes just saying, hey, I'd love for you to tell your friends. And they go, oh, but we'll get into that. What I want to ask you before we do that is I know in your bio and some of our conversations, this isn't your first business, is it, Stacey?
It is not. It is not. So I actually am a member of the Business Failure Club. It's actually a pretty, unfortunately, it's not a unique club to be a part of. I have excellent company. And it's definitely a club that I joined after my first business failed. And I learned a lot of lessons. And most, if not all of those lessons have informed the business that I have now. Excuse me. They've informed the business that I have now, which I think is key to my current success. But I had a business. It was an HR consulting firm. I ran it for almost 5 years before I waved the white flag of surrender and closed up shop and went and got a job, which is really hard once you've been on your own for about 5 years. And I was with that company for about almost 18 months, a little less. And then I started with my second business. And I had the opportunity to go out on my own again. And I was like, oh my gosh, we have to make everything different because I mentally and emotionally cannot go through another business failure. And financially, our family can't afford it either. So it really, those lessons that I learned in that business failure really drove me to try to build and did build a successful second business. And I started my second business as a productivity and business coach and really had great success with that, in part because of my referral strategy. And I didn't set out to build a business to teach people how to generate referrals. That came over time as I was getting better at it. And people were saying, my clients that I was coaching were like, how are you growing so fast? I'm like, oh, I've got referrals are coming in. When referrals come in, you can raise your rates and you're more in demand and you get to be pickier about who you work with. And they're like, yeah, but how are you getting those referrals? Because you've never asked me. And I was like, because I'm against asking. So as that part of my business kind of exploded, I moved into what I do now. But yeah, I mean, I started out wanting to be an entrepreneur. It's not an unusual thing in my family. There's lots of entrepreneurs in my family, but wanting to be one, becoming a failure, getting back on the horse and trying again and putting in place some hard lessons learned that have really made all the difference with being successful with business number 2.
And thank you for sharing that, Stacey. And quite often businesses do fail. I mean, it actually is more the norm than not. And for people that are truly entrepreneurs, that's part of it, is trying. And the lessons that I teach from pricing and profits and money management is actually from all of my failures. So my business, in spite of my failures, I'm thinking it's a God thing, has just kept going so that I can teach people everything that I did wrong. Yours is the same way. It just showed up with a different business model, right? Is teaching and showing. I'm not going to get knocked down and not get up. I'm going to get up and come out swinging. I'm going to do it differently. And every time I learn something a little bit different and a little bit, maybe, let me put it this way. I'm working through fear when I keep working through this, like most of us are, because it is scary sometimes, as much as we want to say we're not. Entrepreneurship is not for the weak-hearted and weak-minded. It is, or even physical, because it all takes a toll. And I sometimes, literally, we were talking on one of the other podcasts about, don't feel like you've got to leave your fear behind. Pack it in a bag and take it with you. Just make it a really cute bag, right?
Put it in a Tiffany blue box.
Get a Prada. I don't care. Put it in the bag and take it with you, because fear is our constant companion to some degree. So if we're always waiting for fear to go away, fear of recreating it, fear of failing, fear of whatever, it's never going to continually or 100% go away. One piece of it may go away, but another fear is going to show up. That's just life. So you kind of have to make peace with it. And courage is acting in the face of fear. And so I love how you stepped out in courage to go, yeah, that didn't work, but here are the lessons I learned. So here's what I'm pulling from it. Now here's what I'm going to go do. And now you have a very successful business based on what you didn't do so well the first time.
And I think that's sometimes the best training ground and the best learning ground. I think the hard part is you have to make the decision to learn your lessons from that failure. And I'll tell you, it was a while before I could talk about it. And it was a while before, when I first closed up shop on my business. And I don't tell a lot of people this, but I think it so resonates with business owners. So I know you and your audience can definitely appreciate this. But when I had to close up shop on my first business and go get a job, people would say, why are you leaving your business to go get a job? Like, oh, something's wrong with you. Like you could just feel, right?
Right.
That judgment and the tone in their voice. And I'd be like, I just got an offer I couldn't refuse. And this opportunity is so amazing. No, I needed a job with a paycheck. Like it was really that simple, but I couldn't talk about it like that. My ego just couldn't go there and be that vulnerable. And so, and it's true, like I got past it and, I got some distance under me and I started my second business and I was still 6 months to a year into my second business before I stood before a group of people, a group of other business owners and said, look, my first business failed, right? I'm uniquely qualified to be a productivity coach because I'm certified in productivity. I've been coaching people. And I'm uniquely qualified to be a business coach because I have the business failure badge and I can see it in you. And so you don't want to go where I've been. And I really think owning that failure and being like, look, it doesn't define me, but it is certainly the swift kick in the pants I need when I start to get lazy or procrastinate or get fearful of making a decision. It is the swift kick in the hiney that I need. And so in some ways, I'm extremely grateful for my business failure, but I certainly don't want other people to have to go through it, which is one of the reasons why I do what I do. But the truth is when you are kind of faced with what happened, if you will just allow yourself some space to heal and then take that like magnifying glass and start looking at what went wrong and get really raw and honest, the most beautiful lessons will come from it. And hopefully you can put those into practice later, like I have.
Agreed. You've probably heard the phrase, your mess is your message. Your test is your testimony. And so there's a mess and a test that allows us to have a message and a testimony. And it's just like parenting. We make mistakes all of our lives growing up. And our goal as parents is to save our children from making those same mistakes. And that is the same thing that we do here. I know even when I realized that my business was really not making money and how horrible it was, and I was devastated. And I truly, it was a very broken moment. I mean, and when some of my clients go through that, I mean, they're calling me, they're crying, their lives are in jeopardy. And that's where mine was. And it took 4 years before I could even kind of, like you said, heal from it enough to then share my experiences to help somebody else. And the more that I've shared, the more that I've learned, the more that I've grown, the more it's been able to be good for me and then for other people. It's like, I always say, you're going to hit a pothole somewhere along this business, road that you're traveling. Just don't hit the ones that I'm telling you are there. Ignore those, right? Try to go around the ones that I'm telling you. If I've pointed them out and put a flag there, try to go around it. You're going to hit your own. You just don't have to repeat my mistakes.
Absolutely. And the truth is, and I think I hear this all the time when I do work with people and they're like, hey, will your referral process work in my industry? Right. And I'm like, yes, it's called human nature and referrals. It will work. And then it's the same thing when people are like, well, are you sure what the lessons you learned and the things that you can teach me will be valuable in my industry? And I'm always like, it's not an industry thing. It's a mindset thing. And it is an ability to do the work.
Yes.
And people always think they're special and unique. And because yes, God made us to be very special and unique. And I'm sure your mom and your daddy told you growing up how special and unique you were. But at the end of the day, we typically all seem to make the same mistakes over and over again. So if you can learn from someone who's been there, done that, learn from the person who's been there, done that.
Absolutely. So when you started the business that you have now, that is the referrals and the coaching and the with an emphasis on referrals without asking, how did you plan for profitability from the beginning, or did you?
Are you going to make me share all my moments that are going to embarrass me? I did not plan for it. And so I'd love to tell this quick story because I think it just reveals how stinking valuable it is what you do. So I started my second business back in 2013, and I did not plan to be profitable. What I planned is to make enough revenue to surpass, like revenue, not take home pay, but to make enough revenue to surpass my corporate salary, because I had decided in my mind that was the number, because I had never hit it with my first business, that was the number that if I could do that much revenue, that my business could be successful. And so I remember I was about 6 months in and my revenue passed my corporate salary. And then I very quickly passed the 6-figure mark. Like they were kind of tied to, like hand in hand. It kind of like happened. I was like, whoa, never been here before. This is super exciting.
Yeah.
And then it just grew from there. And so I usually, I would say that I use the mindset of there's a number out there that tells me I'm legit. Now, did the number tell me I was legit? No, but to me it did in the moment, right? So profitability wasn't even anything I considered or talked about. Profitability was the thing of, oh my God, I have this much money left over in my bank account at the end of the year and I need to go spend it so I don't pay taxes on it. And I think in the beginning, I thought like most business owners think, right? It's like, oh, wait, I got money left over and now I'm going to be taxed on it. That is not the way to think about it. Like, how much can I spend, right, at the end of the year?
Right.
Because I wasn't planning for it. I was like the average business owner, in my opinion. And so I didn't think about it. I didn't plan for it. And I had a client a while back that came into my office. I've been working with him for a couple of years. He came to my office and he dropped Mike's Profit First book on my desk. And he said it was for his coaching session with me. And he said, I think I need to implement this in my business. And I think I will be in a different and better place. And I said, okay. And at that point, I had been on Mike's podcast, but I had been on his Grow My Accounting Practice podcast about referrals. So I hadn't really paid attention to the whole profit first method and model. And I said, okay, well, if you need to implement it in your business and as your business coach, then I need to read it and go through it. And so I can hold you accountable to it. That's kind of how I operate. So I read the book. I read it in like 2 days and I became obsessed with it. And I just became obsessed with the whole idea of why you're supposed to do it, like why profit matters and why you're supposed to like make sure you're pulling that out first and all of the pieces and right of all the things that you teach and why profit totally is a choice and it's a choice to make to think about it that way. And I remember I took the book to my husband and I said, okay, I'm now obsessed with this. I need you to read it because I think you could be a consultant teaching this to people in the hospitality industry. My husband had at the time, he had sold his restaurant, but he'd been a restaurant owner for 14 years. And I was like, you should teach this to people in the restaurant industry and my business should be our first guinea pig. And so we're slowly kind of putting that whole model in place. But I'm like, 5 years later, really, truly saying I'm getting serious about profit.
Great. And, so let's talk about how referrals fit into making profits because, the only way to have money is to have business and to have people coming into that marketing funnel, if you will, at the top. And referrals is a piece of that. And for each company, it might be a larger piece than for others based on the business type and model. But let's start, if you don't mind, Stacey, tell us in your words, what is a referral and what's not a referral? Let's define referral as we're going to use it on our call today.
No, that's perfect because I think a lot of people, when you say the word referral, they have an opinion that instantly comes to mind, right? They have an impression of what that means. And 9 times out of 10, I find people have the wrong definition applied to a referral. So I will hear people confuse the term like a warm lead or word of mouth buzz, or sometimes it's called word of mouth marketing, or sometimes it's called word of mouth referrals or introductions. And they will confuse those 3 as a referral. Like, oh, I got a referral. And then they'll tell me about it. And I'll be like, that was word of mouth buzz. That was an introduction. That was a warm lead. Because a referral is different. And a referral has 2 things that those other terms, those other sales lingo terms for the type of lead, the type of prospect you have is just totally different. And the 2 things that a referral has is that there's always a personal connection. There is always somebody saying, hey, Michelle, you need exactly what Stacey does. And so I'm going to connect you to her, right? So, hey, Michelle, there's that connection to the person who can help solve your problem. And that brings us to the second thing a referral has is there's a need identified. So let's just say for sake of argument, we have our friend Luann, right? And she's having a conversation with you and that there's the or you're having let's say you're having the conversation with Luann and you identify that Luann needs more referrals, right? So you're going to connect Luann to me. That gives us our personal connection because that's where the trust is transferred. And Luann's only going to purchase because she believes you trust me, not because she just trusts me. She trusts me because your trust has been transferred to me. And so you're going to connect us. Typically happens over email. And the other part of that is that you're going to know that Luann needs to have a conversation with me because a need has been identified. You are having a conversation. You thought of something she needed. You guys had said, oh my God, you need referrals. The person you got to talk to is Stacey. And so when you make that connection and you identify the need, what that instantly does is put Luann in a buying mentality. Yes, I am being connected to Stacey and I've identified this as my need and maybe Stacey can solve it. It is only when we have that personal connection so the trust can be transferred and that we've identified a need so that the prospect is actually in buying mode, that we have a referral. If it doesn't have those 2 pieces, it's just not a referral. It's kind of close, but it's not a referral.
Okay, so I know when I listened to you speak back in the fall, One of my favorite things to do is exactly this. This is what I love. And people say to me all the time, Michelle, you're such a connector. You're such a connector. And because I'm constantly getting calls and I'll go, you know what? You really need somebody to help you redo your website. I know, Kate Grunke, and Kate Socialite does beautiful websites. Let me connect you. And then I send an email and connect to, hey, Kate, this person needs a website. They're looking for this, this, and this, hey, Stacey, I really want you to meet Kate. She did my website. It's that kind of a thing. Or I introduce them to bookkeepers or to whatever it is, but it's always in an email. They're both on the email. It's by name, the need's identified, and the person is identified. And so it's interesting because I do that. I'll have people quite often say, hey, well, I'll mention that to my friend. And I'm like, why don't you just send us both an email? Because then I can follow up. Because if you just tell me you're going to tell them, I don't know if you ever told them. I don't know if they followed up. I don't know if they got busy. And so it kind of just goes into, it's like the dead file.
Right. Or the black hole. Yes.
Yeah.
And I always tell folks, like, there's one of the things that I teach people. It's called the flip scripts. And it's when you receive an introduction or word of mouth buzz or a warm lead, first you have to be able to identify, okay, that's a word of mouth buzz, not a referral. And then I teach that how to flip the person who wants to refer, who is trying to do a referral, but is actually doing word of mouth buzz. Like, what do you say to them in the moment to get them to be like, oh, and maybe there's the connection missing or the need identified is missing, get them to pull those pieces in, but do it in a way that doesn't sound salesy, because nobody wants to feel like they're selling for you or that they are leading their friend to the slaughter of sales.
Exactly.
Right? So you've got to do it in the right way, and language is key. And I always tell people, like, especially when people come through my Growth by Referrals program, like, look, most of what I'm teaching is not rocket science. You may have not thought about it in this way. My 5 steps are not rocket science, but maybe you didn't think about it. But where you're going to really need what I have to deliver is my secret power. And I believe that my secret power, or my superpower, so to speak, my superpower is language. And it's making things not sound salesy, and it's making things sound genuine and authentic. Because ultimately, that's what we're after with everything that we do, is to be our authentic selves and to take care of people who make our lives easier because they drop clients into our laps by referring them to us.
I've always been one to say, I know Luann says she loves sales, she loves marketing, she loves all that. I don't. I do it, and I think there's this idea of it that I don't like. That's what I'll say. Right? That kind of sleazy salesman. I always like, here, buy a knife. And if you buy now, you can get 3 more for 19. I just hate that whole approach. But what I love is relationship buying, right? Where your trust, like you said. And so I think that referrals, the way that you've defined them, that's exactly how I've built my business. And that's the type of sales process. It's almost like an unsales sales process. And that's what I like, because if people, that belief system, if they know you and they like you, they trust you. I'll give you an example of how this works in another way. For some reason, all of a sudden in the last couple of weeks, I've been getting a heck of a lot of friend requests. And I go in and look at, do we have mutual friends? And who are those mutual friends? Not only, because I don't know some of these people. Who are our mutual friends? What groups do we have in common? And then I transfer trust based on who their friend group is and what groups they're in and how our lives might intersect before I accept them as a friend. And that's exactly what I hear you saying here.
Absolutely. And I think that's, I've actually never looked at the mutual friends. When someone friends me and I'm like, how many mutual friends do we have? I've never actually gone in and looked. I think that's awesome that you do that. I'll have to try that. But I think that's important, because that transfer of trust, right? Before me ever talking to you, like, it's crazy to think that you can sit in a first meeting or a first call with somebody and they already trust you, and yet they've maybe never met you and they've definitely never spoken to you. And that is the power behind it being a referral. And you say kind of like, that's how you built your business, is this whole referral model. And maybe it wasn't intentional. It was just what felt right to you, that relationship driven, that trust building, like that felt normal to you. It didn't feel salesy or slimy or any of that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of people are that way. I always tell folks that there are 2 types of groups that are attracted to what I do. There are the people who went into business because they're really good at a trade or a skill, or they have an ability. Like, so they're an amazing attorney. They're an amazing interior designer. They are an amazing home stager. They are an amazing CPA, right? Whatever it is. And then at some point in their journey, they decided, I want to do this on my own, right? I want to own my own business. So they're great at the work, but then they have to figure out how to be a business owner, which means you're wearing multiple hats, right? Operations, strategy, human capital, sales, and marketing. And so they are attracted to what I do because they don't want to sell, but they need clients. And so the way that I teach referrals and the way that we generate referrals and what we do to generate referrals, they're like, that's not salesy. I can totally do that. That feels normal. That feels like me. And so they're attracted to it. And the other group of people that are attracted to what I do, they're the type that have been over taught how to sell. Like, they went into a profession, and because those industries are further along in the development, they have been over taught how to sell. So think about your financial advisor. Think about your property and casualty insurance agent. Think about your realtor. Like, you decide to become a realtor or a financial advisor, and you're going to go through a massive amount of training and a lot of sales training. And so to me, I'm a breath of fresh air. They're like, oh my God, something that doesn't sound like sales. That's awesome. But at the heart of both of those groups, what they're ultimately finding themselves back to is, I just want to feel like a human when I'm doing sales, because I feel like a human when I'm doing the work. So I want to have myself in balance. I don't want to have to feel like I am putting on, like a different mask to go do sales and fight the good fight and badger someone until they say yes, and then go do the work and feel like I'm comfortable in who I am and how I'm operating. They want to be that way in both areas, the sales part and the doing the work part. And if you're receiving referrals, well, you're not really having to sell. So you get to be in your unique ability and a place that's comfortable for you while you're doing all parts of your business.
So what was it that happened either in the failed business or the review of the failed business? What was kind of the spark or the aha that helped you kind of quantify these 5 steps?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So what I realized when my first business failed, and I went to the corporation that I went to work for, and I was their chief talent officer, because I was coming out of an HR consulting firm. I paid attention. It was a financial advising firm. So I paid attention to how they were training these people who were coming in the door to be financial advisors. And I had been in sales before. I have a background in sales and marketing. So I kind of had this background in sales and marketing and background in HR. And so I was paying attention to how they were teaching them. And I was starting to look at the gaps that I felt like they had. And I was paying attention to other successful business owners and just looking at all this information, saying what was missing in mine. And what I noticed that was missing in mine was that I didn't come up with a way to touch business development every day. And when I say touch it every day, I mean that's in a way that I want to do it, right? So I can get up every day and cold call, but I don't want to. So guess what? I won't. I will figure out a way to procrastinate and kick that task down the road. And so I started paying attention, if I'm ever going to have a second business, how am I going to grow it in a way that works for me? Because in my first business, I just did a ton of networking. I didn't receive any referrals in my first business as an HR consultant. And that doesn't mean I didn't do great work. I just hadn't figured out how to get referrals from doing that great work and building better relationships. And the only referral I actually ever received within my HR consulting firm came 2 years after I had closed up shop.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's crazy. So when you think about that, I realized, wait a minute, I networked to death to build that second business. And that was really, really hard because I started my business with a 4-month-old in tow. And then 18 months later would have our daughter. So I had my son was 4 months old, and then I had my daughter. And I don't know what it's like to have a maternity leave, because I've never worked for a corporation while having babies. I've been building businesses. And I'm not having any more babies, so I'll never know what maternity leave looks like. But, I had babies at the time, and I was networking, and I was traveling when I needed to, and I was working really hard, and I got some lucky breaks. I'll be honest. I really got some lucky breaks and built and brought in really big name clients like KPMG and BDO and Snyder's Lance and Ally Bank and Coca-Cola Bottling. On the outside looking in, you'd be like, dude, you are crushing it. And I'd be like, really? Where's the money? Because it doesn't feel like it. And I never figured out a way to keep the pipeline full of new prospects that I could turn into clients. And that became the thing that when you're on that entrepreneurial roller coaster where you are, oh my gosh, I have no work, go out there, network, work. Oh gosh, I got a client. Great. Put my head down. right? And then just do the work. And then you look back up, you're like, wait, the work's over. There's no more work coming in. That means there's no more money. Oh, here we go. Hamster wheel, right? Oh, we gotta go get clients. And I never got off that hamster wheel in the almost 5 years that I owned my HR consulting firm. That was a huge differentiator starting my second business. I was like, we are going to get this touching business development thing down. I'm watching what's happening in my corporate job. And when I'm noticing a major gap on, wouldn't I save a lot of time and energy if I just received referrals? So then I started to research referrals. Okay, great. Because I knew even in that business, I have to get back to freedom. I have to get back to my second business or a second business. And so I started paying attention to referrals. So I started doing research. Okay, how do you get referrals? And all the advice was awful. It was either ask, or it was write a book and be really gimmicky with it and then send it out to people and ask them to send it to their clients on your behalf. Like, none of those things worked for me. Like, none of that feels authentic. None of that feels like me. None of that feels genuine. And those things are really important to me. And so I was like, wow, this isn't great. This is terrible. Maybe I won't be getting referrals. So when I left my business and I started when I left the company, I started my second business. I did what I had known to do. I knew how to network. So I went out and networked, started talking about people. Hey, I'm a productivity business coach. Here's what I do, like what it looks like. I started picking up clients. And then I started shifting some of the things that I was doing. And I started receiving referrals. And I didn't know what they were until I started looking back. And I was probably about 5 or 6 months in when I realized, wait a minute, I'm doing some very specific things, which would eventually become my 5 steps. I'm doing some very specific things that is allowing me to receive referrals. So I started putting that into a process and system. And then when people started saying, teach me, like, what are you doing? I started teaching it. And to the first couple of people, it looked nothing like it looks now. I mean, now it is a well-oiled machine built and has had hundreds and hundreds of students go through it in 5 different countries all across the world. So now it's totally different. But I would teach it, and then I'd be teaching to somebody and they'd be like, I don't get it. I'm like, oh, they need a visual. Okay, let's build a visual for this step. Oh, this makes more sense if I teach it this way. And I just taught it. And then my students started, or my clients, I call them students. My students started having great success with my growth by referrals process. And then I turned it into an online program so that I could help people outside of just my local area. I could be national. I didn't expect to become international. So it was super fun when the very first person in the UK bought my program. And now we're in New Zealand and Australia and Canada, and I think Germany as well. And of course, the highest concentrations in the United States. But I just refined it over time, and I kept using it for my business. And every year since I started my second business, I have received over 100 referrals consistently and have had clients that have had similar success depending on what they need or want for their business. And that's when I realized, wow, there's a lot of good stuff here. And so that's when I built the online program in 2016, and I've been doing that ever since.
So let's make this really actionable for our listeners today. Where could they start building referrals? How do they take the information that a referral is a personal connection with a need identified? What's the first thing they can do that they can walk away from the podcast today and start to see a difference with referrals in their business?
Okay, there is one and only one thing I need you to do. Now, I could say I need you to have the right mindset, like you deserve referrals, but you're not owed them, so you're going to have to do some work. Making sure you understand the definition of a referral, you know how to think when you receive a referral, which is a handwritten thank you note. There's lots of pieces that I call mindset and foundational knowledge that you kind of need. But truly, if you want the number one piece of action I need you to take for this to make sense, is that you have to identify who are your referral sources right now. So in my book, Generating Business Referrals Without Asking, the whole chapter 8, the whole chapter is on how do we identify referral sources. It's also module 1 of my program. People always say, why did you just give away module 1 inside your book? And my response is this: if you can't get past identifying who your referral sources are, I know you're not going to do the rest of the work, and none of it makes sense. And who are you building a referral experience for if you don't know who you're building it for? So the idea here is that we have to identify who are our referral sources. The easiest way to do this is to look back at a list of your clients. And if you have this in a CRM and you can push a button and it can tell you the source, oh, this came from a networking event. This came from a Google ad. Oh, this came from referred by Michelle, right? If you have that information, it'll be really easy. You'll pull a list of your clients and you'll look for all those clients that came from a human. and they came from another human. And those are your referral sources. If you don't have the stuff in a CRM, you're going to do what I call walk down memory lane, and it's going to take some time, and you'll probably say mean words about me under your breath as you're doing it because you won't enjoy it. But my promise to you is if you will go through the process of identifying who has referred you clients in the past, you never have to go through it again. Because I also want you to track any new referrals that are received so you always are keeping up with who your referral sources are. And the reason why it is so important to look back and figure out who has referred me in the past, because that list of referral sources, those people who have brought you new clients without you having to do a lot of work, which is how we save time and how we make more money. When you look at that list, I need you to treat that list like they're gold. And I make the argument your list of referral sources is actually more valuable to your business than your list of clients. I know clients bring the revenue, but you don't have any revenue if you don't have any clients. And so you have to get clients. And if your referral sources make it easier, that makes them the most valuable group of humans in your business. Now, the truth is, if you really want the most robust list of referral sources, you should also pull the people that were referred to you, that were prospects, but maybe they didn't become a client. Because even if they didn't become a client, they're still a referral source that sent you somebody. That's how we get the most comprehensive list of referral sources. Most of the people go through this exercise and they think to themselves, usually two things are their reactions. One is, I didn't have as many as I thought, right? So I was doing a VIP session with a financial advisor yesterday, and we were going through his referral sources, and he was like, I've got 30 referral sources. When I was done looking through the list of who he had 6. I was like, these aren't referrals. He was like, what? I was like, that's like, we were going through each, like individually going through each one. I was like, that's not a referral. That's not a referral. That's a repeat client. Like, you can't count them when they just refer themselves. It's not a referral. It's a repeat client. So he was like, oh my gosh. So a lot of times we're like, I don't have enough. And don't worry, we can solve that problem. I can teach you how to get more. But you're either going to determine, I didn't have enough, right? Or you're going to be surprised by who's not on the list. And you may be surprised by who actually is on the list, because our brains are kind of lazy and we only remember easily anecdotal evidence, which is why I'm so big in digging into the data. Who are the actual referral sources? It's not the people you think that refer you. Tell me that they refer you by the number of referrals they've sent you, because then most people are like, wow, I spend way too much time with this group of people thinking they're sending me referrals. Like, I had somebody who went through this process and they're like, I would have assumed I would have had a lot more of my BNI people on this list, and I have 2 out of my 20 referral sources. I have 2 for my BNI group. I'm like, you go to your BNI group every week. I'm not saying that you should drop your BNI group, but you should probably look to cultivate better relationships to get more referrals because of the time you're spending in your BNI group. She's like, good point. I was like, but are you spending any time with the 18 other referral sources? And she's like, no. And I was like, we got to fix that. We got to solve that, because the way to get more referrals from your referral sources is to take care of your referral sources and build meaningful and memorable outreach that builds impactful relationships so that you stay top of mind so that you can receive more referrals.
It's so interesting. I know that one of the comments that I made on the podcast that I did recently with Luann was, we need to know where we need to know our top clients. We were talking about it from a profitability of clients. And sometimes we think it's a certain client that paid us the most until we dig into the numbers. Or
Right.
we think we spent the most with this vendor until we dig into the numbers. And so this follows along the exact same way. And sometimes the people that we think are on the list who are talking to us that, oh yeah, I gave your name out. I gave your name out. But when you go look at the list of who called and who followed up, right, it may show up very differently. So that's a good point. When you talk about looking into the data, is there one number that is key or a couple of numbers that are key that we need to be watching with regard to referrals?
So it has more so to do with the number of referral sources you're going to need, depending on the number of referrals you want to receive. So when people come into my program, I always have a conversation around, I need to know how many referrals you want to receive in a year. And that number is typically dictated by the number of new clients you need in a year, right? So we're not going to really look at your repeat work. We're not going to look at your ongoing recurring work. We're going to look at what new do you need to bring into the business. And from that perspective, that kind of tells me, like, so let's just say for sake of argument, we have an interior designer that needs 15 projects a year, right? So if we need 15 new projects a year, maybe that number's a little high, maybe we should go with 10. You know what? Let's use 10 because I like round numbers. I don't like to do public math a lot. So let's say somebody, an interior designer needs 10 projects a year. Well, my goal there would be to look at that number and be like, okay, how many referral sources do you have? And depending on how many referral sources they have, I would be able to tell them, yes, you should hit your goal of 10 new clients by referral and be 100% referral because you have the right number of referral sources. But we have to look at how many referral sources are active versus inactive, right? When I look at some people's referral source list, I'm like, you may have 30 referral sources, but 20 of them haven't referred you in 2 years. They're technically inactive. We don't even know if they remember you. So we have to look at if they're inactive or if they're active, and we have to look at how many you have. And if you have referral sources that only ever give you one a year, well, and you need 10 or 15 or 20 clients, then you're going to need that many of referral sources. Most of us, if we do a really good job kind of following my program, we can get multiple referrals from individual referral sources, which means we can have less referral sources to reach that number we need. Most of the people I work with, they're not trying to get thousands and thousands of clients, right? Now, they may try to get somewhere between a dozen to 2 dozen or a little bit up from that, maybe 50 to 100. But even in that case, depending on how many of those you want to come through referral, that then dictates how many referral sources we need. And a lot of people will have to cultivate better relationships with their referral sources to start getting more referrals or to even start getting a referral. And so that's really the kind of key metrics that I'm going to look at in someone's business is how many referral sources do you have? How many new clients do you need? How many of those do we want to set as a goal for the first year to come through referral? That then dictates how much work we have to do with our referral sources.
So what are some ways that we can cultivate and build these relationships with our referral sources? I feel like after we say that word referral so many times, I feel like my head is spinning just with that word.
You're going to go write it and you're going to be like, wait, did I spell it right? It's like when you write the same word.
When you take a word and you say it over and over and over and over, and then all of a sudden it feels meaningless. So I don't want that to happen. But how do we, I had to break it up for just a second there, Stacey. How do we build those? I mean, because, this is really kind of interesting because we've been taught, right, and rightly so to some degree, build relationships with your clients, build your relationships with these people. And I'm not saying we don't do that and that it doesn't have a place, but now you're telling us to make sure that we're building this really special relationship with the referral source, the person who's sending them to us. I mean, that's key and that's wonderful. We spend so much time looking for them to go tell our name that we're not building a relationship with them. Let's dig into that for just a minute. So how can we make our referrals source feels super special, tied in, important, without making it feel weighty or slimy on that side?
Yeah, so it kind of becomes a balancing act, but it really is this whole idea of what I teach in my program about building a referral experience. And a referral experience is just simply, we need your referral source to feel like they have this experience with you. They can't articulate it that way, but how they articulate it is back to that Maya Angelou quote. But how they articulate it is, it's how you make them feel. And how you make someone feel is the experience that they then have with you. And that Maya Angelou quote goes, you don't remember what someone said or what they did, but you always remember how they made you feel. So my whole program is built around, we want to impact the emotion and the feelings of your referral sources. And the best way to do that is to make sure that they know you never take them for granted and you appreciate them and you acknowledge them and you're thankful for them and you're 100% authentic and genuine in this. If you're looking to come in and manipulate your relationships with your referral sources, my program will not work. And in fact, it'll backfire in your face. And I hope it does. If you're trying to manipulate your referral sources, I hope it doesn't work because that's just not genuine. And we need to protect these relationships. So it does start with, how do you thank somebody for when they send you a referral? So when you have a referral received, how are you thanking them? And I teach my students, there is only one way to do it. You can send the email or send the quick text because you think there's an immediacy factor to it, but you have to stop and send a handwritten thank you note. Why should I send you more referrals if you can't thank me properly for the one I just sent you? And the second piece to that is, what do you do to take care of those referral sources in between receiving referrals when you're sending that handwritten thank you note? And there's a very easy formula that I tell folks to follow. And that is, if we are thinking about that experience, right? We want to build that experience of what we're doing for our referral sources in between receiving referrals from them. or even receiving that first referral, if you're trying to jumpstart somebody into being a referral source, what we have to do is make sure that in that experience, it is just a series of touch points that are memorable and meaningful. And they are only focused on what the referral source needs. And it allows you to stay top of mind. Now, the secret to that is using the right language to plant referral seeds so that how they start thinking about you is from a referral kind of mentality, because we're never asking for referrals. But when I help you and I take care of you, the way God designed us is that most of us who are not dead inside, most of us want to figure out how to help you back. So the goal here is that your referral sources are helping you. So you're going to help them back by taking care of them. And that creates this circle that's going to start like that back and forth, that give and take. And you're not going to thank them by other referrals, because 9 times out of 10, that's not possible. If you can refer your referral sources, by all means do it. Most of us can't. I have more financial advisors that refer to me. I don't even know that many people with money to give referrals back to all those financial advisors, right? So I take care of them in other ways. And that is the crux of my process, is understanding, like, when I say memorable and meaningful touch points, I am not talking about you calling them and saying, hey, what's up? Hoping that they'll ask you how business is so you can talk about yourself. I'm not talking about your e-newsletter. That's a marketing thing. I'm not talking about you sending the squeezy ball or the koozie with your logo on it, right? That's part of your promotions process. Like, I'm talking about how you take care of them with touch points or outreach. We call them touch points in the program, but outreach that's memorable and meaningful, which means when it's memorable and meaningful, you don't need to do it all that often, but you need to do it a few times a year so that they remember you. And then we use the right language, the secret sauce that allows them to remember you in relation to referrals. And that is how we take care of our referral sources. It allows us to stay top of mind with them, but they feel like we're totally taking care of them because everything we're doing is about them. And all of it is memorable and meaningful. And I call that piece just minding our M&Ms. So we're looking for impact. We're looking for them to remember what we've done. And to do that, you can't send a newsletter. You can't just send a send out card. Though, I mean, I do think there are parts of that work, particularly the brownies are really good, but you just can't send that auto-generated third-party signed card and think that's going to do it. You can't just call them every once in a while and be like, oh, that's going to do it. Oh, well, they get my newsletter and there's a recipe in there last week. Who cares? Right? Newsletters are salesy. Like, you have to figure out how to do it different. And that's what I teach my students is here's how we're going to really define these relationships. And sometimes we're just going to take them to coffee and talk to them if they're local. But there's lots of different things we can do.
Well, and I think the piece that is a key point is that it's memorable and meaningful to the source, right? Not to you. And so what's meaningful and memorable to one of our referral sources, it may look very different with another. So again, it's not that cookie cutter one way of doing it, or like you said, sending them a promotional item. Not to say we couldn't do those things. This is in addition to those things. Not to say take them off your newsletter list because it sells you. That's not what you're saying at all. You're saying these are above and beyond touch points for those people that are sending work your way, sending potential clients your way, because they're sending them and not looking for anything in return. So anything you give them in return is an additional bonus. It's that, wow, you see me, you appreciate me, you understand, what I'm giving to you in business, even if they didn't expect it or necessarily, think that there was anything they needed. It's the above and beyond. And right. I would also say that in general, especially as we look at the financial impact of that, I do believe that is a conversation that needs to be had within the business as part of your marketing dollars, is how much do I want to set aside to be able to do things that are maybe memorable and meaningful. Even if it is just coffee, say your budget's very low or you have an overall marketing budget, what percentage of the marketing budget is going to be spent on loving on, if you will, your referral sources. And so if you plan and have a budget, that actually then it keeps you from going overboard and going crazy and paying more for the referral source than you get in referrals, which I could see happening if you're not watching it. And just keeping it in mind. And
I think that's, I think that's really good at kind of what you said. And I always tell folks, when they're in the program and we are building these touch points, there's actually on the template of how we build it, there is a line item. You'd be so proud, Michelle. There's a line item that says budget. because we have to calculate the budget before we can make the decision if we should be able to do something, because that's going to be an overall line item in our budget. I don't ever call it the marketing budget though, because I think in a business, you need to think of your overall sales or business development strategy as having 3 buckets. First is your prospecting bucket. So it's like, what networking events are you going to go to and pay to go to or pay dues to so you can go network, right? Because that may be something that you do in the prospecting bucket. The second bucket is your marketing bucket. And to your point, yeah, that may be the newsletter you send out, but when you're sending out that newsletter, you're in marketing mentality. You're not in referral mentality, right? And then the third bucket your sales strategy should be your referral plan and what you're doing for your referral sources. And I think each of those 3 kind of have their own line items in your budget, because the reason why I never tell someone to put their referral budget into their marketing budget or their prospecting budget is because at some point we go looking to cut things, right? What we're doing in the referral budget, it's going to take time. And you can't just send a thank you card and be like, I'm going to get 100 more referrals from this person. It has to build on itself. We have to plant those seeds consistently and over time. And the snowball effect has to be given chance to kind of take a hold, because most referral explosions, which is what I want for my clients, they start as a trickle. So I know I need you to separate this out and be committed to it for that first year and plan to do it your second and your third and your fourth year. Because whereas I know you'll judge my program by how many referrals you received in your first year by doing these touch points and following the process, I'm more interested in how many referrals you're receiving 3 years from now, because I know the snowball has started to take effect. And I know that that is creating greater freedom and flexibility and money and profit in your business and time in your business if more of your clients are coming through referrals. But I know it's going to take time to build, sometimes longer than some of those quick hit marketing and prospecting tactics and activities that we can do. Like I have one client, Amanda, who went through the program, and she kind of started in the program, and it was like a half a year was left, and she was like at 6 referrals a year. By following just some of the things we were talking about, she needed to increase referral sources. So she started there, increasing referral sources. She got herself up to 12 referrals that year. So basically doubled where she had ever been in those first 6 months we worked together. And then in 2015, she set a goal for she was like, just somewhere between 20 and 30 would be amazing. Now, keep in mind, she can only take 12 clients a year. So she knew if she could just get to 15, she'd cover it, but 20 gave her a chance to make choices. And she hit 27 in her first year, and then her first full year, which is 2015. And then in 2016, she hit almost 30 again. And then in 2017, she hit 30 again. She hit 30 for the first time, I think. And then 2018, last year, she hit 40. She's now brought on people into her team to help her with the work. And she has such a relief of how business is coming in, because she has this process that she's now been following of mine for going into her 5th year. It just changes everything about our business in terms of our sustainability, and then how we look at where we spend our time, money, and energy when we have a process like this that's actually working in our business.
And I think that's true for any good process. I mean, even Profit First, it's not something that usually you don't clean up everything and make 100,000, the first month you put it together. It is a process that you have to commit to, and it takes time. It makes me think of ivy. We planted ivy on a back hill years ago because it was a very steep slope. And at the bottom of the slope was our kids' play set. And so we put some jute netting down, and we had the landscaper come in, and he planted, I don't know, maybe, it felt like he planted 4 ivy plants, but I think he probably planted 20. It was across our entire backyard. But I remember looking at it and thinking, dude, seriously, you put down 10 plants. There's no way that hill is going to survive. And he said to me, Michelle, let me talk to you about ivy. He said, year 1, it sleeps. Year 2, it creeps. Year 3, it leaps. And then you're going to do constant pruning to keep it out of things you don't want it on. Trust me. So we have pictures of, I swear, of the 10 ivy plants. And then now it's going down the hill, over to the neighbors, up the trees. We're constantly down there cutting that ivy in the growing season. And I think that's the same way about many of the processes that we put in place. The process for referrals, the process for marketing. You can't just show up in a magazine one time or do one thing and expect it to work for you. Profit first, managing your money. You don't get a big kudo because you ran a profit and loss report one time in the year. It is a process that you have to be dedicated to see the outcome. And so we all just need to be like ivy. We need to sleep, creep, and leap.
It's so interesting. Why is it that business owners always go looking for the easy button when we know in reality anything that's worth doing or having takes a little bit of time, a little bit of investment, and a little bit of maintenance?
I would say a lot of all those things. I think
Yeah,
because,
true.
Stacey, because I think I'll tell you, okay, so here's like a thought from Michelle. I believe because we live in a time where everything is quick, where Amazon's delivering on your doorstep the afternoon that you placed an order. We have technology that's replacing technology before the first technology runs out. We are, right? We are literally living in a time where we're replacing everything, like moment after moment after moment, so that we are a very disposable society. And I think that we have the same kind of thing. People would rather take a diet pill than to go to the gym and change their eating habits. We just have become that way. It's not good. I heard something the other day. It said, if you really, as an entrepreneur, of course, if you're looking for success, you're going to have to take the stairway, not the elevator. And I think we just want to get on the elevator and go to the top. And we're constantly bombarded, at least I am in my Facebook feed, with, make $100,000 tomorrow. I did one webinar and made $1 million, or I did one quick program and threw out one Facebook ad and I made $6 million, and you can do it too. And I'm going, that's baloney. That's craziness. I'm not saying it doesn't happen on occasion, but that is not the norm. The norm is moving forward, trying, changing direction a degree at a time. It's to me, it's a lot of blood, sweat, tears, and prayers. And you just have to keep going at it. And I think referrals and finances, all of it, it's work. It is work. It should be joyful work. It should be work that we're doing because we love it. Otherwise, we don't need to be building a business we hate. But it's going to take work. We've got to take the stairs.
Yep. And that means we're probably going to breathe a little bit heavier and exert a little bit more energy. But all of that will be worth it when
we'll be in good shape at the top.
Yes, we will be in so much better shape at the top. And we'll also appreciate what we actually have built because we will recognize our time, blood, sweat, and tears in it.
Exactly. So Stacey, what's one of the next big profit goals in your business?
So, that is such a great question. And if you had asked me that last year, I would have been like, to not be in a place where I have the thought in my head, do I need to spend more money at the end of the year to decrease my taxes? I'm embarrassed to say that's still a thought process I had even last year. So I'd say this year, that would probably be my biggie, is that to make sure that I am doing the hard work and making sure that I am paying attention to how I want my business to run intentionally from a profit perspective, and being okay with the idea that I get to pay more taxes at the end of the year, because actually what does that mean for my business, versus being in that mentality of how much can I spend at the end of the year to reduce what I'm going to pay the tax man. I think that is a different mindset mentality you move from when you start thinking about your business from a profit perspective.
Yeah. It's funny. I turned 50, I don't know what, a year ago. I'm 51 now. And I remember that December, right after my birthday, I called my accountant and I said, I am so excited. I said, I get to pay like an extra $6,000 into my IRA because I'm 50. She's like, Michelle, you're weird. She's like, seriously, nobody ever calls me and says, I'm so excited that I'm now 50 because I get to put more money into my 401k account except you. And I said, yeah, but that's money that I get to save for me. So I am looking at the bottom line going, how can I save for me? And I could have cried over 50, or I could have been excited that I got to save 6,000. I chose the excitement. So, but it frustrates me for some advisors to tell people, trying to be careful how I say that, oh, go spend all this money. Now, if you need something, go spend the money.
Right.
But if you're spending the money just to create more debt and more financial hardship later, because you didn't adequately save for taxes or plan for taxes, I just think that's poor management. And so I now look at it as, do we all want to pay taxes? Heck no.
Right.
The benefit that taxes provide? Heck yes. And so with that mentality, I look at it as the more I make, the more I get to pay taxes so that I get the benefit of those taxes. And then the more I get to help other people. And so if I can just keep my mind positive that I've saved the money, it's in an account, because I've taken it out of my visual, I visually cannot see it as part of how I'm going to be paid and run my business because I have it in that other account. So visually, it's not in front of me. When I pay it, it feels like it's already gone anyway. And so I don't feel the pain. I actually feel excitement moving it into the tax account, and I feel relief when I move it out. And that's very different than at the end of the year looking and going, oh, snap, I owe $15,000 and I didn't save for it.
Where am I going to get it? Yeah, that's the word. Oh my God, we've so been there so many times. It's awful.
It's horrible. And so we do everything we can to stay out of that now. And so I even sometimes move more into that account because I would rather have more and roll it over, because then I can make the decision, do I want to take that out now as profit because I had too much? Or, my gosh, what if I rolled that over and let that be part of January? And now I feel a relief in January in case the numbers don't show up the way I wanted them. So I work the system, but I don't feel pain and torture around taxes. They don't even, I mean, I'll look at it when the accountant tells me what it is and I go, eh. But then I go, I got the money, and I just keep going. That's the feeling that I want for everybody. It's the same feeling that you want us to have with referrals, that I'm not out here having to ask and bang down the door and cold call and all the nasty. It's that it's just working for you. You've got it set up. You're doing a couple of small things. You're building relationships, and then it's just working for you.
And it is the best feeling in the world. When those systems and strategies that we put into place, whether it's around profit or referrals or operations or anything, when they're working the way they're meant to work, that is when we really get to enjoy the fruits of our labor.
Absolutely. Okay, so Stacey, let's tell everybody where we can be found. First of all, let me just say, you and I are both going to be at the Luann Nagara Live. It's about the conversation at the end of March in New Jersey. So they are absolutely going to be able to find us both there. And tell us where your website is and other places that they can find you.
Excellent. So just a couple of things I would tell folks to consider when you're checking me out. So my home base is my website. It's StaceyBrownRandall.com, and Stacey has an E. So it's STACEY, just putting that out there. So definitely find me on my home base. I also have a free Facebook group called Referrals Without Asking. So if you're on Facebook and you like groups, it's over 1,100 professionals all working to learn how to generate referrals without asking. And that's called Referrals Without Asking. You can find it from my website as well as search it on Facebook. And I would really encourage you, if you really want to know where you stand with your referral generation, I have a 9 simple easy quiz for you to take. 9 simple questions, really easy, but it's going to let you know what level. You'll be one of 3. I'm not going to reveal them to you yet. Got to go take the quiz and figure out which one you are. You'll be one of 3 levels of a referral ninja. So to take the quiz, you just go to StaceyBrownRandall.com/quiz, and you take the referral ninja quiz to figure out how good are you right now at generating referrals. Take the quiz and figure out where you stand, and then you'll get more resources to support you moving up levels, of course, if you need to. And you can always buy my book, Generating Business Referrals Without Asking, and you can purchase it anywhere online or offline where you like to purchase your books.
And then you will also be able to buy the book coming out that Stacey and I are both in. So lots of ways to find you, and I'll have all of this in the show notes so everybody will be able to have access to it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Stacey, thanks so much for being on the podcast today. I really appreciate your time, and I've got a lot to think about. I'm going to start digging through my referral sources.
That is awesome. If I can support you, let me know.
That's right, I will. And you go dig through your profits. And
I will keep talking to you in New Jersey, I'm sure, for sure.
That's right. I'm sure in New Jersey, a lot of people are going to be running up to me with profit and loss statements going, look at this, look at this, look at this. So
and they better
be fine. That will make me happy. Some people would be weirded out by that. I would be like, come on, let's look at it. I can look at it and give you 5 numbers with a calculator. We'll be done. You'll know where you are. So
perfect. Well, I hope people come up to me and like, look at my referral sources. I did the homework.
That's right. Or they run up to you and go, I'm a ninja, level 3 or whatever.
I'm the bottom level. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Good. Well, Stacey, I look forward to seeing you soon. And thank you again for your time.
My pleasure.
Thanks again to Stacey for being with us today. You can meet both of us live at Luann Nagara Live. It's about the conversation, which will be held March 30th to April 1st in New Jersey. You can go to my website for a link and details. Also, keep up with the health of your business numbers in your own company. Take the health check assessment on my site. It's the purple bar at the top. You can find that at scarletthreadconsulting.com and get started on the business of profits for this year. Thanks, everybody. Always remember, profit doesn't happen by accident.